that had some malfunctions. And again, we're talking about HCR 2058. Again, if you are not familiar with that legislation, it's a piece of legislation that was written by Representative Keschel. She actually wrote this last session, and she is bumping up against the Proposition 139. And I've already went through the proposition before. I had a bunch of crazy stuff that went on. So, let's continue to move. Let's continue to move forward. Before I had the malfunctions, I actually brought up the 14th Amendment, what it means, because some folks really when they look at the 14th Amendment, they think it only just applies to just life, liberty, and all that great and wonderful stuff. So, however, in the text, as I said, and F in HCR 2058, it says prevention of discrimination on the basis of race, sex, or disability. Now, um, that's when this thing gets interesting. If you haven't already guessed, and HCR 2050 really speaks to the heart of the matter of what's really happening now. As we know, uh, un no restrictions right now on 139. We all know that. We fought with it. It was crazy, yada yada yada. We got that. Let me go into a little bit of history really quickly about before 139, when we were under the territorial ban, Arizona's first ban on abortion, and that was in 1864. And that piece of legislation said that every person who shall administer are caused to be administered or taken any medical substances or shall use or cause to be used in any instrument whenever with the intention to procure the miscarriage of any woman then being with child, and shall be therefore duly convicted, shall be punished by an imprisonment in the territorial prison for a term not less than 2 years or no more than 5 years, provided that no physician shall be affected by the last clause of this section. So basically, the 1864 law says that you would go to jail. Okay. Now, this total ban on abortion was invalidated in 1973 by Roe v. Wade, which recognized the constitutional right to abortion up to fetal viability. And that triggered the law that that actually went into effect when we're talking about the 15-week, or we're talking about the um, 139. Okay. And again, the Supreme Court's ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson, um, that Roe had been wrongly decided. This in turn led to confusion over which the two Arizona abortion laws should go. Then Governor Ducey backed the 15-week ban, while then Attorney General Mark Brnovich held that the uh, older total ban should be operative. So I want to put something out there really quickly. Last year, there was a vote on the Senate floor and in the House about this 15-week deal. I will tell you, the year prior when I was in there, everybody voted on the 15-week ban. Okay, they did. So and then last year they really beat up Senator Bullock on that when she did that. Okay, we talked about 139 and what it did, um, and the ratings for 139. When we're talking about across the spectrum, It leveled. I mean, it was hovering around 73 to 67% in favor, and then against the highest that it got in favor or against 139 was 35%. Again, I want to dip into when we're talking about this law, when we're talking about prevention of discrimination on the basis of race, sex, or disability that is written in HCR 2050. Now, let me get into a clip that you all may remember, and it was on News Decision 2024, so it's a little bit older, in this, and it kind of shows what uh, what they were talking about when this whole thing was going on. So let me go ahead and show this to you, and hopefully I won't screw this thing up again like I did last time. Here we go.
We're taking a closer look at one of the highest profile propositions on our ballot, Prop 139, which would put abortion rights into our state constitution. We talked to a pro member just a short time ago, and now we have Cindy Dahlgren here. Hello, Cindy. You do not want Prop 139 to pass. Why not?
Well, let's start with the fact that there is no ban. Contrary to what proponents are saying, there's no ban. Abortion is legal here in Arizona up to 15 weeks, that's almost 4 months, and then beyond that for any medical emergency. And that's a very broad exemption. Even Attorney General Chris Mays says that that covers those late-term crisis pregnancy complications that proponents were just talking about. They're already covered under Arizona law. And also the miscarriage treatment, already covered under Arizona law. It's 362151.
So you support the 15-week ban or the 15-week law that's on our books right now?
Well, we actually, our organization is made up of a bunch of people from various views. We have pro-life, pro-choice, Democrats, Republicans. So we don't take a position, but we all agree that this amendment goes too far because it gets rid of a lot of the safety precautions that we have in place to protect girls and women who do get abortions.
Like what?
Like the critical ultrasound. If a woman does not get an ultrasound before taking the abortion pill and she has an ectopic pregnancy, it could kill her. If she's further along than she should be in taking the pill, it could lead to very serious complications.
And you're saying that's a fundamental difference between what we have now, the law on our books now, and how this proposition is written?
Yes, exactly. The ultrasound, even the attorneys for proponents said that the required ultrasound now would not stand under Prop 139. And if a woman doesn't have an ultrasound after taking the abortion pill, she still has fetal remains in her uterus, it could kill her. We saw that in Georgia. So these are critical safety precautions. These are not just burdens like they call them. And it's important that voters know that there is not a ban and that those miscarriage treatment is covered and those late-term abortions or those late-term abortions that are possibly necessary in case of those late-term, very sad situations where there are complications later in pregnancy. And right now, women are getting that coverage, and doctors are not afraid. It's already protected under Arizona law. But they're telling voters the opposite of that, and they're trying to manipulate voters and tell them that there's a ban when there's not. And I think that's because they do not want to talk about the specifics of this amendment.
Let me stop you really quickly. I keep hearing that they're saying there's a ban, and I've seen it on billboards and things, but specifically, I don't remember anybody ever saying abortion is banned in Arizona. I think most people know that abortion is not banned in Arizona.
Well, I don't know about that because when we've talked to people, they're a little confused on what it is because the TV commercials and the woman that was just here, she called it a ban. They call it a ban to misrepresent it and manipulate voters into thinking they need Prop 139 in order to get access to abortion, and that's not true. Whether you support abortion or not, it is legal in Arizona up to 15 weeks, and then beyond that for that broad exemption of medical emergencies.
And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the last woman who's in here. If you have somebody who's undecided right now and they've got a week and a half to try to make it happen or voting right now, what would you say to them quickly, 30 seconds?
I would say we are not choosing between abortion and no abortion. We're choosing between abortion up to 15 weeks, guaranteed to see a qualified medical doctor, safety precautions in place, either that or abortion throughout the pregnancy for virtually any reason, no doctor, no safety precautions, and it puts girls' and women's health at risk.
Okay, so now that was a while ago, as we know. We already know that 139 passed, and It is what it is. However, when we go further down the line to where we are now, the conversation kind of moves over to the okay, so what is discrimination? Number one, we already talked about that. Number two, who does abortion target? How was abortion founded? Or correction, how was Planned Parenthood and who founded Planned Parenthood? And what was the goal of Planned Parenthood when it started? Okay. And as we look at HCR 2058, as it starts to come closer to that question, who is abortion targeted to? What demographic? What community? We're kind of looking at, wow, you know, where is this abortion thing actually going to? Okay. And is it targeted to certain groups? Okay. We know Hispanic women, the data shows that 25% of the patients versus 21% of the population rate, that 12.3 per 1,000 have abortions, and the references is right there. We also see that in the Caucasian women, 5.7 abortions per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44, a ratio of 106 per 1,000 live births. That means there are less, in both categories, there are less abortions to those two groups, or correction, there are more live births than there are abortions in those two groups. Now, this next number, and I've talked about this in great detail about this, and this is alarming. And some of you already know the number. And when the African American population is targeted, we are talking about Black women, 24.4 abortions per 1,000 women, age 15 to 44, ratio of 429 abortions per 1,000 live births. So when we look at the math, what does that really look like when we're looking at the math? Well, that means there are more abortions than live births in the Black community. This is when we have to go back in history. This is when we have to look at, okay, so Planned Parenthood was pushing 139. They say it's for rights, abortion rights. Got it. All right. But the data is telling us something else, that HCR historical data is telling us that it is targeted based on this, just on that alone. It's kind of targeted to the Black community. And why is it more prevalent that we see there are more abortions in Black communities? Or as Loretta King, the doctor, or the daughter or niece of Dr. MLK, excuse me about that, says that Planned Parenthoods in Black communities than anywhere else. Why is that? So July 12th, 2022, there was a Senate committee hearing, and the hearing was about post-Roe in America. So I want you to listen to this. It's about a 6-minute long video, and just bear with me if you will about this. And I want to share this with you, and I want you to hear the testimony. We have some pro-choice folks that are being grilled, and we have some senators that are like, "Whoa, wait a minute now. Are you Are you saying so and so and so and so? Let's go ahead and listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor Bridges, you, in your testimony, talked about the prevalence of abortion, the percentage of black babies that are aborted as opposed to non-black babies. I think you said 3 or 4 times more black babies than non-black babies are aborted. You also talk about systemic racism. Do you see any systemic racism associated with the prevalence of abortion for black babies as opposed to non-black babies?
Absolutely. The higher rates of unintended pregnancy that lead to higher abortion rates among Black people is a result of structural racism, systemic racism. I understand systemic racism not to be boogeymen who are trying to dupe Black people into abortion care. I understand structural racism to be the systems that have made it so that Black people disproportionately bear the burdens of poverty in this country, the systems that have denied them the basics that they need in order to live humane lives like food, clothing, shelter, health care.
So you believe
a system that responds with the criminal
you
legal
believe there ought
system.
to be more black babies aborted, is that right?
I believe that we ought to create the conditions under which people can lead lives that are filled with dignity and humanity.
And
that
to
means
your,
being
to
able
your way
to,
of thinking, that happens when more black babies are aborted.
I believe, I trust, I love Black people with the capacity for pregnancy. I think they have agency, they have intelligence, they know what is best for themselves, and I would love to create the conditions under which they can live lives that are filled with dignity and humanity.
And do you think a baby that is delivered alive has value?
Yes.
Do you think that a baby that is not yet born has value?
I believe that a person with a capacity for pregnancy has value. They have intelligence. They have agency. They have
I'm talking about
dignity.
the baby.
And I'm talking about the person with the capacity for pregnancy.
You're not answering the question. I'm asking.
I'm answering a more interesting question to me.
Do you think that a baby that is not yet born, let's say the day before this mother delivers, do you think that baby has value?
I think that the person with the capacity for pregnancy has value, and they should have the ability to control what happens to their lives.
Well, and I just note you refused to answer the question. Ms. Harrell, the Declaration of Independence talks about certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When do you think that unalienable right to life attaches?
Thank you. Yes, life is a human right. And when I answered Senator Booker's question earlier, that I think our laws should protect all human life, I think I was focusing on the hard part, and I didn't mean to suggest that it's a matter of congressional authority to enact the law that you described. But I do think that the American people understand that you have no rights if you don't have the right to life. That is a principle that our nation was founded upon, and every human being from its earliest existence has its own DNA and has a future. If we don't extinguish it, has a future, and that is a human right. It is the values and mores, as Senator Cruz was speaking of, that goes back to the founding of our nation, even at common law, and all the way up until 1973, when those life-affirming laws in 46 states were turned on their heads by the Supreme Court. So I believe that's what the American people believe. Life is a human right.
Governor Stratton, as I listen to your testimony, it seems to me that you're advocating for abortion at any time, for any reason, at any point during a woman's pregnancy. Is that correct?
What I'm advocating for is for everyone to have the right to determine what's best for their life, their body, and their future.
Any time, at any point in the pregnancy. Is that correct?
I'm advocating for everyone to have the right to make the personal decision about what's best for their life, their body, and their future. Everyone should have that right.
Do you not understand my question? My question is, are you advocating that there's a right to abortion at any time, for any reason, at any point during a pregnancy?
I'm not sure if you understand my answer, but what I'm saying is that
I understand that you're not answering the question.
then
And what amazes me is the advocacy for unlimited abortion rights, where there is zero value placed on an unborn child. I think Senator Cruz pointed out, obviously, abortion is a very emotional and divisive issue in our society. One reason why we haven't had conversations like this is because the Supreme Court has said you can't talk about it because it's out of bounds. It's in the Constitution, as opposed to it being decided in a forum, a legislative forum like the states. But what I don't understand is the argument that a unborn child has zero value the day before it's delivered, but then has value the day after it's born. Ms. Matzke, can you help explain that?
Thank you so much, Senator. Yes, I actually can. As a matter of fact, here in California, there's a law that's about to be passed called AB 2223. And this law basically will allow, as a woman is in the midst of a chemical abortion and she delivers a baby alive on the floor at any stage of pregnancy or in a hospital, that baby, if this law is passed, has the ability to be born alive and left to die. No matter what, a baby in the womb or outside of the womb has value. And we are not just talking about the value of a life in the womb right now, we are also talking about the value of a life in California after.
Okay, so some of you may be saying, why is he showing that, man? I mean, come on, geez, why is he showing that? You know, why is he doing that? So here is where this thing segues into what we were talking about with Representatives Kesho's HCR 2058. Again, as it says, prevention of discrimination on the basis of race, sex, or disability. It also, again, puts some guidelines, some guardrails on 139. Because 139 is similar to what the young lady was talking about in California, what's out there in California. Now, this is where it gets interesting, where we get over to the race part of this, the discrimination part in this. As I showed you the numbers, and again, you can get those numbers from the CDC. We're going to talk about how this thing, again, segues over into how this whole thing started. A lot of you already know where I am going with this. And I'm going to show you a clip again. This is, this is something that I think that to grab this and to connect this to 258, you can see where it starts to collide. It starts to come together. That's why 2058 is, I didn't see this when I was on the floor, but when I went back and read this thing and looked at the data, I'm like, this bill actually intersects where this whole thing started. And that's the brilliance of Representative Kesho. When she brought this bill, I don't think people were looking at that. I don't think people saw this intersect where this thing actually goes. So let me go ahead and this with you.
I'm Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger is the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Hello.
In the mid-1920s, Margaret Sanger spoke to a group that came to hear her in full regalia.
Eugenics means the release and cultivation of the better racial elements in our society, and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extirpation of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization. the most merciful thing that a large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it.
She hired black ministers expressly to sell the idea.
We don't want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea.
Now, I want you to listen to this next part, and you are going to see some stark connections of this. And I want you to remember who at that Senate hearing was speaking the most about Planned Parenthood and abortion.
Never occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Surely today's Democratic Party leaders would repudiate Margaret Sanger.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. I am really in awe of her. And there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from her life and from the cause she launched and fought for and sacrificed so greatly.
Good afternoon, this is Autumn.
Hello, Autumn. I'm interested in making...
Okay, if you can't, pay attention to this part right here, because this is, I didn't mean to, show the Hillary Clinton thing in this, because she means nothing in this to me, except, she accepted some award and she praised the founder of Planned Parenthood. And when we talk about discrimination and targeting Black communities, this is real life. This is fast forward of Margaret Sanger's what she wants to do. Okay? Or what she wanted to do.
A donation today?
Fantastic.
What about abortions for the underprivileged minority groups? Would that be possible? Like the Black community, for example?
Certainly.
It is unfortunate that Planned Parenthood has been the object of such a concerted attack.
I really face trouble with affirmative action, and I don't want my kids being disadvantaged, against Black kids. I just had a baby. I want to put it in his name. And we just think, the less Black kids out there, the better.
Understandable.
So I'm hoping that this situation will not further undermine the very important services that Planned Parenthood provides.
Hello, this is Sue. May I help you?
Hi, Sue. I'm interested in making a donation. Could I specify that abortion be done, or those abortions be done for a particular minority group?
If you wish, you can.
Okay. So for example, the Black community in Tulsa, the abortions will be done specifically for the Black community abortions.
Great.
Today, the vast majority of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in our neighborhoods.
So, if that doesn't grab you by the, So it seems like that her wishes come true, actually. And if you look at the, I have something else I want to show you that is alarming, and let me put it up for you really quickly. A letter that actually speaks to this whole thing about the Margaret, the quote that that was given by Sanger, and I want you to take a look at it. And it says, it's easy to look at it. And it says, these are quotes from Margaret Sanger, and it says, we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out the ideal if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Margaret Sanger, December 19th, 1939. Now, I want to show you something that is quite alarming. Quite alarming. Let me bring this up back for you again. And I want to show you this. And I showed this earlier. What did she say? We want to make sure that the person is educated, that the person is Negro. At that time, she said preachers and so on and so forth. Who do we got right there? We have African Americans that are actually fulfilling Margaret Sanger's plan. So how does that intersect again with 2058? And based on what we have heard so far, is it unconstitutional? Is 139 targeted to a demographic? We looked at the numbers. Is it premeditated? We looked at history. History is fulfilling itself based on who is the public face of this. The most outspoken folks, particularly when they went to the Senate, are people who look like me. People that Margaret Sanger wanted to push this out. Now, that right there that's a wow moment to me when I see that. Now, I didn't intend to do this whole Margaret Sanger thing, but the more I did my research and the more that I look at I look at Representative Keshel's bill, the more I'm like, there's something going on with this. And again, this part, number F, sticks out to me. The prevention of discrimination on the basis of race, sex, or disability. Right now, the majority of the abortions are targeted to the Black community. We heard the niece of MLK say there are more Planned Parenthoods in Black communities than there are anywhere else. We know that Margaret Sanger is the founder, the original voice of Planned Parenthood. 139 opens that up. It is a constitutional right now where there are no limitations on abortions. And we're like, whoa, wait a minute. This thing affects people who look like me. It also affects women that are Hispanic. 21% of the population. Now, if you don't know the numbers for the Black population, we should actually be at 16% of the population, and we are sitting at 13%. Some folks will say, oh, that's not true. That's not true. Look at your data. All you got to do is look at the census and follow the census over the past, I think it's past 40 or something years when Roe v. Wade went into effect. The Black population declined. And if you look at history, there were more Planned Parenthood in Black communities. There was more of an effort to do this. Is that discrimination according to the Constitution? Getting back to that, is that discrimination? That is the question that we need to ask. And is 139, according to before Keshel's bill goes into effect, is 139 unconstitutional? Because her bill will make it unconstitutional based on, and I'm not a judge, I'm not an attorney, I don't know. This is, I guess the world according to the law world, according to law. I am not, there are smarter folks out there than me. This is just my take on this whole thing. Okay. Now, since we know this is targeted to Black communities, I'm going to show you one last clip. It's about 4 minutes long. And I'm going to let you be the judge of how all this, and some of you probably have already seen this. I want you to be the judge of this. And it's an interesting clip. And let me go ahead and show it to you.
So I'm not going to crush that part. Recent videos released by the Center for Medical Progress reveal Planned Parenthood's inhumane treatment of unborn children and its executives negotiating the sale of baby hearts, lungs, and livers. Another boy, another boy. How did we get to this point? To understand present-day Planned Parenthood, we should understand Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood's founder and hero.
Margaret Sanger was a big proponent of negative eugenics, which was the viewpoint that you should weed out unfit people from the bloodline. So that would be encouraging people not to procreate if they were unfit, feeble-minded, had any kind of mental illness, and that also included forced sterilization.
Words like unfit and feeble-minded were used to describe not only the poor and mentally ill, but also to describe African Americans.
Margaret Sanger stated that birth control is nothing more or less than the facilitation of the process of weeding out the unfit, of preventing the birth of defectives or of those who will become defectives.
In 1921, Margaret Sanger founded the American Birth Control League. Its primary mission was to prevent uncontrolled procreation and establish a world program of birth control.
She states, knowledge of birth control is essentially moral. Its general, though prudent practice must lead to a higher individuality and ultimately to a cleaner race. Margaret Sanger stated that the most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it.
In 1939, Sanger wrote a letter to her eugenics colleague, Dr. Clarence Gamble, a member of the Birth Control Federation of America, in regards to setting up the Negro Project, a birth control clinic for African Americans.
She was speaking about serving what she called the Negro population, and in concluding this portion of the letter, she stated that we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Sanger believed that having an African American minister on staff would ease the suspicion.
African American populations were considered some of these unfit members that should be weeded out. So in this letter, she discusses having African Americans serve other African Americans so they wouldn't be aware that they were seeking to terminate them, to exterminate them by the use of birth control and negative eugenics.
Sanger was quite fond of Dr. Ernst Ruden's work, director for the Society for Racial Hygiene. He would later go on to write Nazi Germany's sterilization laws. In 1933, she published his article, Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need, which promoted programs to eliminate the unfit in order to create a super race. In the late 1930s and 40s, knowledge of Nazi atrocities made words like eugenics and population control unpopular in America. So in 1942, to distance itself in name, Margaret Sanger's American Birth Control League became Planned Parenthood. They weren't just being established in the U.S., it was global. A grim fact in American history was the forced sterilization of women in Puerto Rico. In 1936, sterilization programs spearheaded by the International Planned Parenthood Federation, with funding from the U.S. government, sterilized 1/3 of Puerto Rican women by 1968, making it the highest proportion of childbearing-aged persons sterilized in the world. And today,
Planned Parenthood facilities are generally located in low-income areas which are heavily populated with minorities, and a lot of times they seek to reach those minorities to help them with reproductive rights, they say, with birth control and largely abortion.
independent studies have concluded that nearly 80% of Planned Parenthood facilities are set up in minority communities. It's no wonder abortion is the leading cause of death among African Americans, higher than all other causes combined. Mounting evidence against Planned Parenthood's beginning to today continues to fuel public outcry.
The American people should seek to immediately defund Planned Parenthood so that our own tax dollars don't go to support this organization who has been exposed to be lying to the American people for many years, for committing these egregious acts against the youngest children among us. They should be immediately defunded.
So, wow. That should be a wow moment right there. So they made a statement in that abortions are the highest rate of murder in the Black community. So that means that a baby in the womb is targeted. Black baby is targeted by an organization that was started by Margaret Sanger, who obviously sided with the Ku Klux Klan and the mustache guy over there in Europe. They liked the eugenics bill. So would HCR 2058 actually protect Black babies more than anyone else? And it's going to protect, anyone that's out there that's a baby. But is it going to protect Black babies more? Think about that. When we look at the history, when we look at the text of 2058, it's genius that bill will actually save more lives in the Black community than anything that has been put out there. One more that I want to show you, and we'll go ahead and start to close this up.
Americans only make up 13% of the population, but 38% of those are abortions. That is our future leaders, our innovators, and our community leaders. At Planned Parenthood, 80% are in our Black communities. We have abortion that devalues our life because we talk about being pro-Black and all that. We devalue when we have abortion, and then it causes high risk of depression, anxiety, and guilt post-abortion for these women. Black Americans only make up 13% of the population, but 38% of those are abortions.
Okay. That, that's something. That's something. So what I want to end with is this proposition, HCR 2058, is going to go to the ballot. And it was voted on in the 57th legislature, first regular session. The representative who wrote this bill, Representative Kesho, did something that may, in fact, save more babies in general. However, targeting saving those lives in Black communities based on the prevention of discrimination. We know that Margaret Sanger went after the black community, and she didn't go after the black community simply because, you know, she wanted to do a favor to the black community. She didn't do that, especially when she was hanging out with the Ku Klux and Klan. She wasn't trying to do the black community any favors. And they even said that they changed the name to Planned Parenthood. That there was a plan to target the black communities, that they went after black spiritual leaders. And when I showed you that clip of who was talking the most about abortions are good for the black community, they were black folks, African Americans. But yet we have a Caucasian woman who was very conservative, who was very constitutionally minded, look at it from a constitutional lens and places that in the bottom part, prevention of discrimination, on the basis of race. I got to tell you, folks, I encourage everyone to pull up HCR 2058, read it, look at the bill, and understand what it's going to do. It received a due pass, and it's a partisan bill, as you know. And it's crazy. It took a Caucasian woman to get up there and say, you know what, this is wrong. And she didn't have to do that. Wow. So my hat's off to Representative Keshel in the bill, HCR 2058. I want you to continue to watch that and look at that. Make sure that you pay attention to this bill. Pay attention to it when it gets on the ballot. Okay? I know some people are going to, he's taking away our rights. He's taking away this. He's taking away that. A woman's right to choose. Listen, I don't give a damn about that all, because that's your business. What I do give a damn about as an African-American leader or a person who happens to be black, who's, I don't know, in our community, my priority is saving those lives of unborn children that have been targeted against. 13% of the population, everybody. That's something to think about. Everybody, I'm Walt Blackman. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll be coming back to you next week, or actually Saturday or Monday. No, correction. Monday, we're going to be talking about what's going on in Payson, about the road in Payson, how that we've seen a lot of accidents there. Got off to a rough start today. I hope you were able to enjoy it and get some information. If you want to learn more about this, all you need to do is go to my web pages. You can go to YouTube as Walt Blackman. You can also go to TikTok. It's Walt Blackman 1 on TikTok. Again, and you just go to www.votewaltb.com, and you can go to X, formerly Twitter, Blackman for AZ. And finally, if you want to know what I'm doing in the legislature, just go to www.azledge.gov, House member, and you can see what I'm doing and everybody else in the Arizona House. Everybody take care. God bless. I'll see